be released soon. We identify, share, and scale best practices. The rubric that we'll be sharing today is really about how to assess a program for this particular aspect. We look at how we can share lessons learned. Many of our network meetings are focused on sharing best practices. So I'll just put a pitch for our next network meeting, which is in December, to say that if any of you are implementing or know of programs that are doing a really great job of broadening participation in STEM, increasing the underrepresented student population in STEM education, to let us know so that we can consider them as a presenter at our next network meeting. In addition, we also deliver NAPE's professional development and have been in these 6 states for quite some time, and so we're monitoring the implementation of those particular activities. These are the 5 work groups, so if you're at all interested in participating in any of these work groups, we'd love to have you be involved. You can sign up for a work group, sign up for our listserv at napequity.org/IMSTEM. And each of these work groups is led by a steering committee member and a staff person, as well as have participants from the network involved in their implementation. So if any of these particular work groups interest you, sign up today. There's a handout document also on the website, same web address you can find, that describes the details of the work group activities. But the functioning of the network and its success is really evolves around the work group. So having people involved in this is important. All right. So without further ado, I'd like to pass the baton. And let me do this here quickly. Quickly is not going to be, it was easy when there was no one signed up yet. So here we go. Pass the baton to Kathy Albin. Kathy is a Student Success Navigator for the Center for New Directions at North Idaho College in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. And she's going to share with us the work that they're doing there. Kathy, I'm going to unmute you, which would be useful. And there we go. You should be able to talk now.
Hi, thank you. Thank you, Mimi. And welcome, everyone. As Mimi shared, my name is Kathy Albin. I am a Student Success Navigator here at the college, North Idaho College in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Coeur d'Alene is located about an hour and a half south of the Canadian border from British Columbia, and about 30 minutes east of Spokane, Washington. So that gives you a little bit of location of where we're at. This opening slide, I just always love to share this with those of you who have not been to the Northwest. This is a perfect example of our beautiful community which we live. The left there is the mouth of the Spokane River, which flows to the Columbia and continues on to the Pacific Ocean. And the beach in the front there is right there on our main campus, and we have many students that obviously partake in the activities and the beautiful 4 seasons that we celebrate here in North Idaho. So I share that with you because it's such an incredible picture of where I get to work every day. So if you've not been here, come visit. So as Mimi was sharing, we had the opportunity, 4 of us, this past summer, 2018, so last summer, had the opportunity to go down and participate in an eSTEM institute down in Doña Ana Community College in New Mexico. And this is a picture of the 4 of us who were selected to attend from North Idaho College. On your left, Dr. Liz Zanker, who teaches anatomy and physiology, Kirsten Blanchett, who is a chemistry instructor here at NIC, myself. I coordinate our Center for New Directions. I also teach computer applications and office technology at our Workforce Training and Community Education Center in Post Falls, Idaho, and in outreach centers as well. And then on the far right is Karen Thurston. She is a computer scientist and runs our computer science program here at the college. We had never met before, and we joined down together in New Mexico to participate in really what became a life-changing journey for all of us, and we are doing our best to try and spread that to our campus community as we work into year 2. So I just look forward in sharing with you what our project was, what we've gone through, what we continue to do as we move forward in sharing this information that we are so privileged to have participated in. When we got back from New Mexico, we wanted to present to our leadership a way that we could sustain the work that we wanted to do. So we presented this in a 3-phase model. And so phase 1 was really trying to get a larger group of faculty members here at the college involved in sharing out the training and information that we had learned down in New Mexico with a larger group. And phase 2, which is what we're starting now, we just started in September as we came back for our fall semester, is really trying to intentionally grow this message, expand our group, and then year 3, or phase 3, is furthering that outreach into our workforce training and community education center, as well as local businesses and agencies and partners that we work with out in the community, as well as secondary institutions that we work with in trying to spread this message. How we brought the team together, we set out to really look at how we could affect change here on campus. And we wanted to do that through STEM and CTE, working especially with programs who have gender non-traditional students enrolled in those programs also with low enrollment, high attrition, and gateway courses. We sent out an email to division chairs asking for recommendations of possible faculty members that could contribute time to serve on this committee. And we were inundated with recommendations, which was very exciting for us. This slide here shows a timeline of our project. In July, as I shared, we attended the eSTEM Institute down in Las Cruces. In August, we then sent out that email to our division chairs in hopes that those recommendations would come in and we could invite a larger number of faculty members to be part of this team. We then continued from August of 2018 through April of 2019 on our Action Research for Equity project. In April of 2019, we were invited to present at the Equity Roundtable back in Arlington, Virginia during the NAPE Summit. In July, we were asked by my instructional dean to create some kind of creative opportunity to share out with our larger campus community what we had been doing over the course of this past year. Again, trying to spread that word. So we came with a really fun way to do that in a Star Trek parody that we developed in partnership with our communications and marketing area that allowed us to be creative in creating this video. So we shared that at the all faculty assembly meeting at the beginning of this semester, and it was very well received and just, again, a fun opportunity for us to share out the work that we've been engaged in. This past August, I had the opportunity to share with the other Center for New Directions across the state of Idaho. There are 6 of us, and I had the opportunity to share out both the Action Research project we've been involved here at North Idaho College, but also specifically talking about the work that we did down at the eSTEM Institute down in New Mexico last summer. That was a great opportunity at our state REACH conference. And I was also asked to present professional development to our adult education staff, a staff of about 18 here at North Idaho College. In August, they were specifically wanting to focus on the idea of growth mindset. But again, it gave an opportunity and a platform to share out what we had done with our research project and how that can be interwoven into their classroom and things that are happening in our adult education center here. So as I mentioned, September, here we are, 2019, a year after we started, or well after a year that we started, entering our phase 2. And we have began to train and bring on our new faculty members that are now joining our NAPE team here at NIC. Here is the framework that we used for our entire action research project. This was presented to us last summer at the eSTEM Institute and became absolutely the focus of what we wanted to do and infuse here on campus to our staff and faculty. And again, as we move forward into phase 2 and 3, the greater community here in Coeur d'Alene as well. The content that we began to share, or that we chose to focus on, was that of cultural stereotypes, implicit bias, micro-messaging, growth mindset, and self-efficacy. We were provided these wonderful toolkits from NAPE to allow us to deliver the message within our larger group. So with the department chair recommendations that we received, we had a group of 10 faculty members, as well as the 4 of us. So we had 6 additional faculty, including the 4 of us that attended the Institute down in New Mexico. We delivered the content trying to use hands-on activities that engaged our faculty members, that got them excited about the content that we were sharing, and really trying to keep in mind that we as educators are familiar with a lot of this content, but just trying to kind of bubble it up again and see ways that we could be infusing this in our teaching practice and what we are already doing. We just tried to make our monthly meetings fun and engaging in trying to share out this content. This is a slide that as we started to share content, the very first gathering that we had as our larger group of 10 was on cultural stereotypes and implicit bias. And the day before we met as a group, this picture that you're seeing here on this slide is a group of elementary educators here in the state of Idaho in Middleton that hit national news. This was right before or right after Halloween last year. And I was sharing with Mimi really how powerful this slide is for me as an educator. And initially I thought it was part of living in Idaho and being what I call a homogenous culture. But in sharing this out, I'm really learning that this is the case in a lot more places than just Idaho. And we ended up focusing a lot of our attention in that first meeting or gathering together of the 10 faculty about this picture and how powerful it really is. So if you're having a hard time seeing that top photo shows educators standing together with bricks in front of them, and across the front says "Make America Great Again." And in the lower picture, obviously, shows those in costume as, you know, what we're guessing is an inappropriate way to talk about the wall and the border issues that were happening last year during this time. And I think what makes this so amazing to me is that I was an elementary educator in the state of Idaho for 18 years. And I really felt like I could understand 1 or 2 educators coming together and thinking that, you know, this might be some fun costume ideas. But for this many to come together and think that this was a good idea in what they were doing, and the messages that they were sending their students and the community. And Middleton is down near Boise, down in the southern part of our state, where they have a large Hispanic population of students. And again, as a parent, as a community member, as an educator, looking at the impact of this picture, I just, it couldn't have been more timely as we opened up and talked about cultural stereotypes and implicit bias and what we are doing intentionally or not in our classrooms to talk about that. We also explored the Harvard implicit bias surveys that were presented to us at the eSTEM Institute down in New Mexico last summer. And again, this was very fascinating as we, as the group of 10, came together. We shared our experiences of taking some of those surveys, and we know that we all have that implicit bias. You know, where that's at, it's different for each of us, but sharing an open conversation about what that was like to experience those surveys, how it made us feel, what we could do to critically look at, again, what we're doing in our classrooms and how we can share that out and have that dialogue with our colleagues about that. Really, this gave us an opportunity to open up a door that was uncomfortable but necessary for us to do. This slide here is a perfect illustration. As a group down in New Mexico, part of our task was to have monthly meetings and share out what was happening at our institutions. And after our first meeting, talking about cultural stereotypes and implicit bias, I shared about that experience and talked about how difficult it felt to be sharing with this group of 10 faculty members these kind of tough conversations and information, because a lot of them showed some resistance in that they thought we being the core group of 4 that attended the training down in New Mexico, were wanting them to change what was happening in their classroom and their teaching practice. And that was not the case. And we as a group grew together, and I will share more about that. But on the conference call, one of the first months, I had shared with Dr. Tracy Durant, who was a mentor and teacher from the Institute down in New Mexico, about some of those frustrations. And she said something that became so powerful as we moved forward in our project, and that was, noticing is interrupting. She shared with me that the mere fact that we were talking about this information, that we were sharing, that we were opening doors and talking, that noticing is interrupting that cycle of inequity that you saw was the center and core of the work that we wanted to do and try and affect change in our teaching practice here at North Idaho College. So that noticing is interrupting. This picture that I created actually came out of one of the toolkits, a similar photo. And this quote just really also says it all. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. Taking that first step and beginning to notice is starting to interrupt that cycle. And so when Dr. Durant had shared that, and I brought that back to the larger group, things started to become a little more clear, and we began kind of getting excited about how we can start to affect change. One of the experiences that we had when we were down in New Mexico was some cards that were developed by Dr. Megan Pollock, working for NAPE, who had developed kudo cards. And they were cards similar to what I have illustrated here on this slide. And we, the 4 of us that attended the Institute, really loved the idea of what the kudo cards was trying to achieve, which was to give out positive messages to students. And so what we did is we brought those kudo cards back and we talked about it with our larger group of 10. And we really wanted to change those a little bit and make them feel like they were branded with NIC colors and with quotes and phrases that were meaningful to us in the work that we were doing. So what you're seeing here is the work that we created, again, in partnership with our communications and marketing department, allowed us to kind of go back to the drawing board and recreate what Megan had created. And we just personalized them a little bit. What we talked about in doing we call them positivity postcards, and the idea behind them was to really give that intentional, wise feedback to students, really trying to praise the process and not the ability to provide that in a timely fashion. And I think all of us can recall a time when we were in school and maybe had a teacher that took extra time or care in writing a message at the top of our paper or attaching something that just made us feel a little special, a little more attended to. And so that was our idea behind the positivity postcards, is trying to give that personal touch to students, helping them increase their self-efficacy, trying to look at the growth that was happening in our classrooms, and just to give them that kind of personal touch. And what ended up resulting in that was these powerful anecdotal stories that were shared out at our monthly meetings as faculty started to send these positivity postcards out to students. And these messages became emotional for us to share at these monthly meetings, because the response from students who received these were just so thankful that their instructor had taken extra time to notice and to share and to recognize that we as learners make mistakes, and that's going to happen in the learning process, and that that's okay. And this was a growing and learning process for us as we tried to look at how we could deliver the positivity postcards to our online courses that we were teaching. So we developed a digital format of the positivity postcards so that we could type and fill in our own messages instead of the handwritten. We wanted to make sure that we were looking at our trades and industry division to see if that is something that they felt that they could use with their student population. And then we thought about what we could do to start affecting some change in the ways of growth mindset for our students. What you see on this slide here are 3 examples of bulletin boards that we created and put in our building outside of faculty offices. We invited local youth to come in and help create these bulletin board, kind of poster bulletin boards, and talking about growth versus fixed mindset, putting out positive messages, talking about what it looks like to have growth and fixed mindset, putting out positive messages. And that gave us an avenue to connect with the youth too and start that language of growth mindset at a young age. And I had shared with you that I had been an educator in Idaho for many years. And these are things that we did in our classroom. And I just think that as students move through their educational career and understand the plasticity of our brain and that we can grow and advance. We are not born with that blank slate, that we can grow. We just wanted to see if this stimulated conversation between students here at the college, between faculty. So that was what we had intended in creating these bulletin boards. Also, as a result of the work that was happening on campus, was a professional development course that we are now underway teaching. We have 25 faculty members enrolled in a 2-credit professional development course here at NIC. We're using the book Teach Students How to Learn by Dr. Sandra Yancey-McGuire. And that came as a result of us talking about mindset through the NAPE project that we were working on, and a book that another faculty member in a different division happened to see us reading and talking about. and reached out and said, you know, we want to offer this professional development course. Is this something that you and or members of your NAPE team would be interested in doing with us in partnership? So all the work that we were doing throughout started to spread to different areas of campus, different divisions, and making those connections. So it became more and more rewarding as we moved forward in our project. So we developed a self-efficacy survey. We distributed this survey through all of the courses that we as faculty were teaching. We really wanted to look at the mindset of our students. So we developed, and you see here in yellow, the 3 questions of the efficacy survey. Down in the blue is a link for you to look at how we formatted the survey. One of the cool things that came of this is North Idaho College didn't have a formal institutional review board. They were in the process of creating one, but we, as the NAPE Action Research Team, really wanted to put this self-efficacy survey out in January to our courses, but felt like we needed the approval and support of our institutional review board. So that ended up launching and formalizing the IRB here at North Idaho College. So that is an active working group here now as a result of the NAPE work that was happening. It also allowed us the opportunity to reach out to our disability support services in talking about the accessibility piece. Are we meeting that with the survey that we're sending out? And again, when we called over and asked if we were meeting those accessibility requirements, they responded with the fact that you are asking and wanting to know is 3/4 of the battle. So we felt pretty excited at the fact that we were reaching out to other areas of our campus to make sure that we were meeting all of the needs of our students. This is an overview of the self-efficacy survey. We were able to gather 195 self-efficacy surveys from the students in our courses. So this shows the classes where we gathered those surveys. These are, again, the courses that the 10 of us were teaching. And this slide here just shows a breakdown. This is one of the questions. Do you take on challenges and believe effort and persistence can lead to success? And this is a breakdown of an individual faculty member's course and how they rated themselves on a Likert scale that we had provided for that efficacy survey. So this is what our results look like, and we were able to gather as that group of 10 and talk about the results of that survey, which surprised us a little bit because the self-efficacy of our students were much higher than we had anticipated. So we wondered, why is that happening? Is that because they're worried that their instructor was going to see the results, even though we had shared that it was confidential? What was that rate of efficacy? So again, that gave us a platform to talk about, are these the questions that we want to ask? Do we want to continue that self-efficacy survey? Is it helpful? What are we going to do with the results of that survey? So we had success in doing that. The campus impact that our project, our action research project, had this year, it was that one small step, but it's happening and it's spreading, and that's the exciting piece. We were successful in helping faculty members begin to interrupt that cycle of inequity that we shared, the NAPE cultural wheel. And we were successful in getting faculty members to engage and talk about cultural stereotypes and implicit bias and micromessaging happening in the classroom and outside the classroom. We were able to talk about ways that we can increase self-efficacy for our students and increase their growth mindset through the positivity postcards, through the information we gathered from the self-efficacy survey, from the bulletin boards that we did, through the sharing out of the Star Trek parody that we shared at our all faculty meeting. This again just illustrates the REACH conference that I was sharing, that I had the opportunity to share to the 6 other Center for New Directions across the state. This second intro slide here is the professional development that I was able to deliver to 18 staff members at our adult education center here on campus. And then when we came back from presenting to leadership our showcase that we had done in our work with NAPE over the course of this past year, we presented them with ways that we could tie in what was already happening here on campus into what we called inclusive excellence. So this third down here in the lower left side of the slide shows a graphic that we created and presented to leadership, showing ways that we can take the information we learned from NAPE and tie it into the diversity work that's happening here on campus, tie it into some intercultural development surveys that we have now secured funding for and are going to be distributing this fall to faculty and delivering workshops. So the NAPE was a critical piece for us as a campus to begin to share out and talk about this information and begin to really make it inclusive excellence for our students, because that's our goal here at North Idaho College, and I know it's our goal as educators, is to provide that positive experience for students and be relentlessly focused on our students' experience in education. And then this bottom right hand just shows the professional development course that we're engaged in now here at the college as a result of the work that we had the opportunity to learn from NAPE. And then I was sharing to the Adult Education Center, took the positivity postcards that we had branded and used as our institution. They just wanted a little bit different message to share out with their student population, so they created these positivity postcards. We did the training on the WISE feedback so that we made sure that faculty and staff are using those intentional feedbacks to give students, that it's not just a way to go or congratulations, but really giving them that specific feedback. So we learned a lot of lessons. We learned that maybe trades and industry here at the college might not be as receptive to the positivity postcards. So what does that look like in the future? I shared with you that we added a digital positivity postcard so that we have that access to be able to provide that to our online courses. We really wanted to talk about being mindful to the distribution of the positivity postcards to our students, making sure that, if somebody saw them, one of their peers getting one in class, what does that look like? How are we going to share that without, them feeling left out? And then we learned a lot about the survey, how it was deployed, how we wanted to make sure that students who were in multiple classes had access to answer that survey. So these were our lessons learned. And again, if you have questions or want to learn more of what we did, we would be happy to share out. If it's anything that you can use at your institution and help spread the word, that's what we feel it's all about.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
Great job. As I'm changing the presenter here, I just wanted to let you all know that I placed in the chat box the link to the survey that Kathy had shared in her PowerPoint so that you can see that. Also, I just wanted everyone to be aware of the fact that Kathy was talking about the micromessaging to reach and teach every student academy that we held at Donna Anna Community College last summer. And it was part of a National Science Foundation Advanced Technology Education grant that we have here at NAPE, where we were able to bring together cohorts of community college faculty to conduct training as teams, and then they went back to share what they learned with at least 10 other colleagues on their campuses. So you can see Kathy did that and more, significantly more. to influence the culture at their campus. So I think this is a really good example of how you can take professional development and really sort of scale it in lots of different ways. So thank you, Kathy. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well done. And I've been watching for questions. There haven't been any very specific questions, but if anything pops up later, we'll bring you back in to ask those questions. We'll do some questions at the end. We're going to transition now and ask Susan Thackeray, who's the assistant professor at Utah Valley University and a member of the great and powerful effective practices and scaling work group, to talk a little bit about a deliverable that we've just released today. I hope you all have had an opportunity to take a look at this. If you are on the desktop version of GoToMeeting, you can actually download the document from the Materials tab that's on your control panel. If not, Susan will share with you the link to where you can access it. So Susan, take it away.
Thank you, Mimi. So thank you for having me. Let's get right to that link and talk about how you can download it, and feel free to do it now while we're talking if you want to review it, and that might inspire some questions for the full evaluation rubric that we developed. Let me give you a quick intro. My colleague Brian Mitchell from Nevada and Mimi and I worked on this project for nearly a year, if not over a year, and we informed ourselves by reading literature and examining different examples of successful programs such as Kathy's that she just shared with us, and created this rubric for assessment to guide people that want to create some good projects and to help them navigate successful outcomes in a good way. So Brian, I think, summed it up in a beautiful quote. He said this rubric was created after a lengthy examination of the research and best practices around increasing equity in STEM education, and following a thorough review of practitioners and experts from around the nation. In Nevada, broadening participation in STEM is one of our 4 priorities. We believe this rubric has significant value to help our teachers, school administrators, and informal educators come to know the key attributes of an equitable STEM education, and to conduct a self-evaluation to identify opportunities for growth. Additionally, as our office works with aspiring STEM schools, we plan to use this rubric to better communicate the principles of broadening participation in STEM. So that sums up basically the spirit behind the development of this tool. And I would like to add that recently, at the end of August, in the state of Utah, where I live, we received a great opportunity. United Nations, for the first time since I think the 1940s, they decided to host and it was a couple years in the making, but they chose to host the 68th United Nations Civil Society Conference here in Salt Lake. And I was invited to talk along the lines of the theme for that conference, building inclusive and sustainable cities and communities. And specifically, I was asked to address the international goal of United Nations, the Sustainable Development Goal number 4, which the outline of that goal is to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. In 2015, there was I want to read this to get it right for you. There was a UNESCO together with UNICEF, the World Bank, UNFPA, UNDP, and UN Women and UNHCR organized the World Education Forum in Incheon, the Republic of Korea. And they hosted over 1,600 participants from 160 countries, including over 120 ministers and heads and members of delegations and agencies. So all these people got together and adopted these strategies. Well, when I spoke for the UN and I went over the strategies, I was excited to learn it happened to be not one of the pieces of evidence that we even reviewed because it addresses international issues. But when I spoke on that topic, I was excited to recognize that this tool that we developed aligned very well with this document that came out of a world consortium of people. And so I mentioned that in my presentation to some international people that I Am STEM was already on it for our national tool. So I just thought I'd throw that in there. So let's talk about what's included in this document that hopefully you've had time to download, and if not, you can take a look at later. So we developed 8 attributes that can approach, and we actually we tested our model on a limited basis at the Educational Summit in the spring to receive some feedback. And I found it interesting because of time. We shared with the audience 1 attribute per group, and so people were evaluating our tool, and some of the feedback was, wait, we need more, and we do have more. We have 8, but they just evaluated, 1 attribute at the time. So you can see that it's a holistic approach that you can use this Rubric tool to identify multiple areas of success with your program, or areas that you might want to improve through your program. So the equity focus, it's just clearly stated equity in the STEM mission and vision, and there needs to be a needs statement and a history of positive outcomes that explicitly impact underrepresented groups. So we want an excellent program will pay attention to that equity focus. The capacity, we recognize that the capacity needs to be sustainable. We don't want projects that are just a one and done, and we want them to be replicable and scalable with diverse students and to create diverse communities. And then that we wanted to have a career connection. Students are connected to their future college and career goals, engage with business. And I was excited to note that Kathy talked a lot about self-efficacy, because once someone recognizes that they have that self-efficacy, they connect, they often, the literature shows that they often connect that efficacy to a career, and they can see clearly the applications of what they know and how they can apply it. And so we feel like engaging with business and industry will provide a good STEM role models and work-based learning opportunities. The STEM content, we determined that STEM that needs to be challenging and relevant, and it needs to align with standards. It needs to be integrated within the former curriculum, technology rich. No more worksheets, right? There's opportunity to be technology rich and accessible by diverse students, different modalities of delivery that leads to college and career transition in STEM. We also recognize that instruction, STEM instruction that integrates a technology, uses multiple high-impact instructional strategies that are culturally relevant, experiential, and inspire students to pursue more STEM coursework or a career in STEM. High-impact educational practice strategy uses the best practices to engage diverse learners. We recognize that there needs to be professional development, integrated professional development on equity, inclusion, and cultural competence in program design and pedagogy. It needs to be long-term sustainable development. Again, not a one and done. Our faculty and our administrators need continued discussions, continued safe places to learn how to have an impact in their community. We recognize that leadership is a commitment from the organization. It's the top down. It's reflected by program visibility, faculty and staff engagement, financial investment. Many times, I know in my experience and probably yours, you're told, yeah, go ahead and implement some kind of new program, but you're not getting any financial investment, so good luck. So we recognize that leadership, needs to give you that support and the systemic integration. And then the community, authentic community partnerships and family engagement of the target population that's being served. Oddly enough, I'll refer back to my UN presentation. The session that I did was well over 200 people. I think there were 7,000 or something enrolled in the conference overall, but my breakout session was pretty large, and we were instructed that we needed to open it up for conversation for at least 20 minutes of our presentation. We had an hour and a half. So we had to have 20 minutes of that of discussion, and we had microphones, and people came forward from all over the world talking about the difficulties of involving their community. And some of the topics that came up was, you know, that they don't even know, community members don't even know what they don't know. And it's up to us to inform and teach and bring those community voices in. And without that, you know, you're not going to have. So all of these attributes are interconnected. They strengthen each other. And we're really pleased with our rubric, and we invite you to try it and use it. We look forward to finding a way to evaluate the tools, and right now it'll just be an informal approach. So we're hoping you can apply some of these principles and utilize the rubric, and let us know how it works for you, and maybe even if we need to do a few revisions, we're happy to know about your input. So yeah, we're going to end with how might you use the rubric, and maybe will you be leading that discussion, or would you like me to continue?
Well, I was just going to encourage everyone, if they would, they could just put their answer in the chat box. If you haven't had a chance to download the document and take a look at it, I did want to mention that for each of the attributes that Susan talked about, there are what we call sort of sub-attributes. There's sections for each. And then for each of those subsections, there are statement descriptions that basically set the benchmark for whether or not a program, a practice is accomplished, established, developing, or undeveloped. So the rubric has those criteria. So it's a very comprehensive document. If you consider length as an important measure of amount of information, it's 20 pages long, so this is not a short read.
Well, and I might add that the UN one is like 83 pages, so we did pretty well.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so I would encourage you to take a look at it, and I would also echo Susan's comments about if you have any feedback for us about the rubric, or if you use it and have feedback, either this needs to be fixed, or this section doesn't work well for us, or it worked really great and this is how we would love to hear about it. But we want it to be a tool that is shared widely out in the field and utilized as best as you can. So please do that. Again, if any of you have any ideas about how you might use the rubric and you want to pop that in the chat box, it would be great to see those coming up.
Thank you.
And I'm going to back the screen up. Somebody was asking where the URL is for the rubric. You can find it on this page. So if you go to napequity.org/I'mSTEM, scroll down the page, you'll see an item that says STEM Equity Program Evaluation Rubric. Click on that. It'll take you to the landing page for the document, and then you can just click on this image just like the one you see here in the screen, and the document will download for you. So it looks like we've got a few folks saying a few things here. We got HIP. HIP. Someone has to help me with acronyms here. Oh,
that's
Susan.
The high impact. High impact practices.
Thank you very much. High impact practices is a top priority for our institution. I'll be sharing this with our HIP folks, so that's great. I'm going to share the rubric with the other members of the newly formed equity committee on campus, and we will discuss how to use or adapt our committee's mission. As an equity coordinator, I could also use this when evaluating campus programs, classrooms, instruction, and other areas. Fantastic. So and thank you for helping me with the acronyms too. Let me know if you're having any issues with downloading the document or finding it. I can always pop up the website so you can take a look at it. I want to be cognizant of our time. And ask again if there are any questions. Just pop them in the chat box and we can ask them. I did want to be sure that you all know how to reach us. If you have a need to contact any of our presenters or myself, you can reach us at, these are our email addresses. I'll leave this up for a minute, so if any of you want to jot those down to reach out to us. And I also want to remind you to save the date for our next network meeting, Thursday, December 12th at 3 p.m. Mountain Time. And we'll be doing a focus on best practices in the 6 states. So if any of you have some great work that you're working on and want to highlight it, this would be an opportunity. We usually do these as what we call a carousel presentation. So we have a presentation from each of at least one from each of the 6 states. And then we have an opportunity, if you want to dig deeper and dive into any one of those, we can set up a separate webinar with just that single presenter to learn more about the practice and the effect of that work. So save that date. Susan and Kathy, I want to thank the two of you for your participation today. It's been really wonderful. Kathy, I'm excited to hear more about how the work that you're doing at North Idaho College progresses, and thank you for your commitment to this effort. And Susan, thank you again for your great work on the rubric as one of the primary authors. You and Brian were wonderful to work with. And I also want to be sure to recognize the rest of the effective practices and scaling work group who all gave feedback at intermittent points along the way as we were developing this and how important that was to us. And for the rest of you who participated in today's webinar, again, if you have any feedback on the rubric, it's always a living document, so please share that with us so we can continue to improve the work that we're doing. Again, thank you very much. And as we close this webinar, an evaluation is going to pop up on your screen. If you would complete it, I would really appreciate it. Bye, everyone. See you on December 12th.